y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name's Danielle and I'm the owner of Damn Fancy Creations and the Drunk Flamingo Glitter. If you guys are new to my channel, I do want to let you know that all of my groups and links are posted in the description below in case you guys want to check them out. In today's tutorial, we're going to cover everything listed here. I love how this cup turned out. I was going for a matte and shiny contrasting color, so it really just looks like a black cup, but when the light hits everything right, the cobwebs just pop, and it's kind of like a happy little surprise. This is a great cup if you're looking for something relatively quick and easy to do. It really didn't take me too much time, and there aren't a whole lot of steps to this cup. So even if you are a beginner tumbler artist, I feel that this is definitely something that you'll be able to complete with no problems. But if you do have questions or need a better explanation of a step that I did, please just ask in the comments and I'll come back and check them. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get started on this tutorial, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright y'all, so the very first thing we're going to do is spray paint our tumbler black. We should all know how to spray paint a tumbler, so I did not film myself doing that, but I used a matte black by Rustoleum. Once that is dry, we're just going to put a layer of epoxy over our tumbler. My favorite is Artistry's 1:1 ratio fast set. If you guys have not tried them out, I do have a link and discount code below if you guys want to give them a try. And I figured that I would show myself epoxying this mug because I know a lot of people struggle with epoxying the handles of the mug. So in case you guys want to see how I epoxy my handles, this is how I do it. I really just run my finger along all of the edges of the handle, and then I wipe away any excess that may pull where the handle meets the actual body of the cup. And then I just kind of wipe from top to bottom or bottom to top to kind of smooth everything out. And then I will hit the cup with my torch for about 1 or 2 rotations. I will apply one more layer of epoxy after this one is cured, just to make sure that our layers are thick and this cup is not going to crack easily or the epoxy is not going to be too thin. And after the second layer has cured properly, we will be ready to apply our Spiderweb decals. Okay, so now that our tumbler has cured, this is what it will look like, just a shiny tumbler. I'm going to be using some Spiderweb decals. I will link them below. And we're going to be using Mattify, which is Artistry's mattifying compound. So I am just going to pick up these spiderwebs with my transfer tape. And I'm just going to apply them where I want my cobwebs on the tumbler. And these are 2 stars left over from I don't even know what. They're just on my transfer tape. So I'm just kind of arranging them how I want them on my cup. And you can't really see them in the video too well because they are black. And I just cut random sizes of the spider webs. I did want at least one large one to cover the tumbler. So I did size that one appropriately so that it would cover the full body of the cup. And then the other few are just kind of connected to each other. And I did trim this little piece because I did not want it overlapping one of the webs. And I'm going to add one to the bottom. And once we get our webs on our tumbler, we will be ready to start matting it. Before I get started matting the tumbler, I am going to tape off the handle because I want the handle to still be shiny. So I am just taping the ends really well with some painter's tape. And then I'm going to wrap a piece around the rest of the handle just so none of the mattifying compound can accidentally get on the handle. And then we're going to be ready to start matting the cup. So with Mattify, you do need to shake it up a little bit, make sure everything is incorporated well. And it comes with this little scrubby. I'm just going to squirt a little bit on there. And I'm just going to rub in circular motions, applying light to medium pressure. You don't want to scrub so hard that it scrubs the vinyl off of the cup. But we do want to make sure that we're using decent force so that the matting compound can do its job. So after I scrub my tumbler for a little bit, I will wash it off and dry some spots, and we can already see here that the shine is coming off. So that is a good sign. So I will just continue to scrub. And if you're doing a mug, make sure to get under your handle. I am just scrubbing one side, and then I will turn the tumbler and we will scrub on the opposite side. I will also scrub beneath the handle and above the handle just to make sure those spots around the handle are also matte. So here is after I have washed and dried it, so we can see what spots are still a little bit shiny, kind of around the rims on the bottom. So that is where I'm going to focus scrubbing this time. And if you need to apply a little bit of pressure in some spots, you can do that, but just be mindful of the vinyl. So now I am just kind of focusing on those spots that were shiny. And once you think you have it pretty well scrubbed, you can wash it off again. And it will still look shiny until it is dry. So you can dry it, you can use a hair dryer if you want to, if it's really wet. But I was pretty happy with this. Everything looked pretty well matted. So once you are happy with your finish, we will be ready to remove the painter's tape and remove the cobweb vinyl. So I'm just removing the tape right now so our handle is still nice and shiny. And now I'm going to use my little tweezers and we're just going to pull up that vinyl. And I know it's a little hard to see on video because everything is black, but you can definitely see how the cobwebs are still shiny. So already I was loving that matte and shiny contrast. Very rarely does it happen where visions I have in my head actually translate how I want them to exactly on a cup, but this was one of those times that I was super excited about how this was looking. So we are going to go ahead and just remove all of the cobwebs. And this will be the finish of your cup. I will go ahead and point out that typically I do epoxy over my drips. But if you are going to do a matte cup like this, where your cup is matte and your drips are shiny, then you will not be able to epoxy over your drips. But in my mind, I was thinking that the cup has already been buffed, so that surface is kind of roughed up a little bit. So I think that the drips will have enough grip on the tumbler to stay and not affect the integrity of them. So I don't see a need to epoxy over them. And when you are removing your cobwebs, you may notice a little bit of sticky residue left over from the vinyl, but that is easily removed with some 91% alcohol, and it's not going to affect the tumbler whatsoever. I wiped this tumbler down with alcohol several times. I scrubbed it really good to get all of that sticky residue off. And if you are wondering, I just used my regular permanent vinyl for this project. I don't typically use removable vinyl. I don't keep it in stock. This is just plain black adhesive vinyl. And make sure that you get all of the little pieces of vinyl off. Some of these cobwebs had really little lines. So once you're done, you can wipe everything down with alcohol. So this is me just wiping it to show how it's shiny, but then when it dries, that matte finish really stands out. So now that our cup is basically done, we are ready to apply our drips. So this will be our finished tumbler. Now we're just going to add some drips to it. I have already mixed up 1:1 ratio fast set. I do like to use this fast set for my drips. You do have to work fairly quickly when it starts to set up, but I do let this sit for about 30 minutes in total. I do stir it every 1 to 2 minutes just to see how thick or warm it is getting. But I get really good drips. And you don't have to sit and babysit it like you would regular epoxy. And I don't have to mix anything into it besides my colorant. I'm using Granite Shadow, which is a dispersion color from CC DIY. I'm just adding a few drops. I do like using dispersion colors more than acrylic paint because you're not going to get any of that stringiness that you can get with acrylic paint. I'm also going to add a little bit of my mother of pearl mica. It is just a pearl white. This is available on thedrunkflamingo.com, and I just added this to give it a little bit more shimmer. and to make those drips stand out a little bit so you can really tell the difference between the shiny drips and the matte tumbler. So once this is mixed up, we're just going to let it sit, and I'm going to continue to test it on the side of my cup. And when the epoxy is very slow moving or not moving at all, that's when I know it's ready to apply to my cup. So I am just doing a thin rim all the way around my cup and smoothing it out a little bit. And once I get the epoxy rimmed all the way around my tumbler, I'm going to look at the cup and see where the natural drips are starting to form. And that's where I will add just a small dab of epoxy to help those drips drip a little bit further down the cup. So I am just adding little drips just to help that epoxy drip a little further down. And this is the part where you do have to work fairly quickly when that fast set starts to set up. But I typically don't have issues with it. I can do 1 cup perfectly fine. If I try to do more than 1 cup, then it gets a little hairy. I also always like to keep my torch handy, because once I get the drips on there, I will use my torch to pop all of the bubbles that are in the drips. You don't want those bubbles to form when the epoxy is almost cured and have these weird holes in your drips or bubbles. We want to have a smooth surface. The torch can also help those drips fall a little further down. The heat will heat up the epoxy and make it a little bit more liquidy. So the epoxy will fall down the cup just a little bit more. So I know my torch is kind of out of frame, but I don't hold my torch super close to the cup because I don't want it to catch on fire. But I'm just turning the cup, as you can see, as I am hitting it with my torch. And once you're happy with how your drips are formed, how far they are formed down the cup, I'm going to take a little bit of alcohol on a towel, and we're just going to wipe around that top rim. Since this is our final layer, we want to make sure that that rim is nice and smooth. I will go back and just clean up the rim with my blade once everything is cured, but we want to get it as smooth as possible as it is curing. And then I will just hit it with my torch one more time just to smooth out that rim. And after those drips cured and you clean up the rim, this tumbler will be finished. Like I said, I did not epoxy over these drips. I felt like the buffed tumbler surface provided enough grip that those drips were not going to move. And here are some finished pictures of this tumbler. I absolutely love how it turned out. This is why I have such a hard time letting go of my cups, because I want to keep every one of them. But I thought this was a really fun, simple Halloween tumbler. And if you guys try it out, please post in my group, because I love to see what you guys come up with. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group or my mentorship group that are both linked in the description. Thanks for watching.